Welcome to Major in Law YouTube channel. In this video, we'll be looking at the area of breach of duty, which comes under the tort law. First, let's take a look at breach of duty in negligence cases. Blythe vs. Birmingham Waterworks, 1856. The defendant must uphold a reasonable standard of care in a negligence claim, which involves determining the defendant's standard of care and identifying their factors leading to their negligence, which can be divided into two phases. Question of law. Question of law is used to figure out the standard of care required by the defendant in a negligence claim. Question of fact. Question of fact is used for identifying the list of factors that resulted in the defendant's negligence. Coming to the next subtopic, the reasonable man and the objective test. In order to determine a reasonable average and skilled man, the law employs an objective test of reasonableness. However, the defendant's characteristics and ability to do the task to a reasonable standard are not considered. The standard of care. Defendant is required to act in the same way that a reasonable person would in the same situation and at the same time. The following factors are considered to determine the defendant's standard of care. Personal characteristics of the defendant, such as clumsiness, ordinary illness or even old age, cannot be considered. The benefit of hindsight cannot be granted to the defendant. For example, knowledge that was not used at the time of the claimed injury is irrelevant. Special circumstances affecting the defendant, such as having to act under pressure, may be permitted. This differs when the defendant has any special skills. In some circumstances, the defendants may have special skills or qualifications, in which case they are compared to a reasonable person with the same skill or qualification. However, before making a judgment, the following elements must be considered. The defendant's abilities or qualifications must be precisely ascertained. A large group of defendants may be subdivided into smaller groups for the purpose of comparison with reasonable members with the same skill or qualification. The Bolam test. In the case of Bolam vs. Friern Hospital Management Committee, the plaintiff suffered a pelvic fracture during electroconvulsive treatment, due to negligence in administering relaxant drugs before therapy. However, another body of medical opinion stated that the risk of fractures was considerable when such relaxant drugs were used. According to Justice McNair, a man need not possess the highest expert skill. It is well-established law that it is sufficient if he exercises the ordinary skill of an ordinary competent man exercising that particular art. The Bolam test has been used in a number of cases involving professional negligence and breach of duty. In the case of negligence, the children are judged using the same age criteria as the defendant and any other reasonable child. In Mullin vs. Richards, two 15-year-old schoolgirls were fencing with plastic rulers. In reality, such games were common in schools. One of the rulers snapped during their game, causing a major eye injury to one of the girls. The Court of Appeal ruled in this specific case that the danger of injury was not reasonably foreseeable, and the girls were held to the same standard of care expected of a 15-year-old kid. Falling below the standard of care. In the case of Glasgow Corporation vs. Muir, 1943, Lord Macmillan emphasized that judges must determine a reasonable man's actions under given circumstances, highlighting the uncertainty of outcomes due to diversity of views. Professional defendants and standard practices. Courts evaluate whether a defendant acted in accordance with what a reasonable person would do, but there is no standard process for the court to follow. The Bolam test has its own standard of care that must be followed in the medical field. The House of Lords has ruled that the standard of care required in each situation is determined by the court. In cases where a body of medical opinion is in favor of a doctor, they can be held not negligent by applying the Bolam test. However, the test is problematic in determining whether the doctor sufficiently warned the patient about the risks of medical treatment. In cases like Montgomery vs. Lanarkshire Health Board, 2015, and Webster vs. Burton Hospitals NHS Foundation Trust, 2017, the court found the defendant not responsible as the doctor simply acted in accordance with a reasonable body of expert opinion. Conclusion: the defendant needs to behave in the same way that a reasonable person would in the same situation and at the same time. If he has behaved contrary to this, he will be held liable for the tort of negligence resulting from a breach of duty. To download our study materials, join now to our website and download your notes. To get more videos like this, subscribe now. Thank you for watching our video.